Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the first video in a new series I'm going to do about my Warframe builds. If you haven't played Warframe before, check it out. It's a nice little space shooter, space ninja type game. Today I'm going to go ahead and do my Ash Prime or Ash build for the new rework. Those of you who have been playing know that Ash was recently reworked to do a little bit less of the control or the press 4 to win type approach to it. Everybody was complaining about it being too easy, kind of a one-trick pony. So they ended up doing a major rework on the abilities here. To start off, let's go over the abilities real quick. Shuriken, the first one here, gives you a nice little, just basically a throwing star attack.
I've been thinking, Operator.
Shut up, Orders.
I thought you'd want to know.
Shuriken doesn't do a high amount of damage. You can see here with my build, it's only 850 on a hit. However, it does apply really well with Ash's passive ability, which is the bleed effect, do more damage and last longer. So Shuriken will give you a bleed effect, and even level 40 heavy gunners can die just from the bleed out effect from a single Shuriken hit. So Shuriken is not a high-end ability, but it is very nice for the most of the enemies you're going to encounter outside of endless missions, where you can just hit them and allow the bleed out effect to kill them. Second ability, Smokescreen, got a kind of a tweak, not so much a rework with it, but just more of a tweak that ties in with Blazestorm now. Smokescreen is, of course, Ash's cloaking ability, which gives him a cloak that's not as good as what Loki uses or what Ivara uses. However, you know, it does add a benefit of when you throw it down, the enemies within the range of it will have a slight stun, will get a stagger, and it does disrupt them a little bit, as opposed to Loki or Ivara, where they just kind of cloak real quickly. When my previous builds, when Blazestorm was the press 4 to win ability, the one-trick pony, most of the builds did not rely on a lot of duration that were based for Blazestorm, so you really didn't see Smokescreen being used as much. And as a result, they tried to incorporate that into the new rework, where Smokescreen becomes a lot more integral to everything with it. It's still not as good of a cloaking ability as Loki or Ivara, like I said. However, with my build now, I do have a decent duration for it, and it actually does make Ash viable for me to use as a spy mission type stealth frame, as opposed to just a hit one button and that's your ability. Third ability, Teleport, did get reworked slightly. Previously, Teleport was simply, you could only target enemies, and it would teleport you immediately to them, staggering them, and let you then do a finisher move on them afterwards. They added Fatal Teleport, which causes you to automatically do a finisher move, and then also gives an increased amount of damage to your finisher. The rework changed it, however, so now you can actually teleport not just to enemies, but to any target with a health bar. This makes it a lot more useful for normal team play, because now you can teleport to a downed ally and help revive them. You can teleport to a, you know, container halfway across the room to make it easier to do speed runs with them. So it has opened up. A lot of people are saying Teleport should have had a better rework. They don't think that it was done well enough. But when you add the augment Fatal Teleport to it, you really don't need much else done with it, in my opinion. To me, this is actually all that really needed to be tweaked, because anything further would negate the use of Fatal Teleport, really. So that's only the main change that happened to Teleport, was they made it so you now can target anything with a health bar. Fourth ability, the ultimate ability. Blaze-Storm, previously, what you would do is you would target an enemy and hit 4, and when you did, any enemy within a certain range, based on your range boost, your duration, so forth, whatever, would be targeted, and Ash and 2 clones would jump around and just hit everything possible. The problem there also was that any enemy targeted became impervious to damage from your teammates. So you basically locked down everything. Now that's great for the Ash player, but it kind of irritated a lot of people, hence the nickname Ash Holes. It also kind of made Ash a boring frame to play for most people because of the fact that you hit 4 and that's it. You press 4, take your hand off your mouse, grab your burger, take a bite. 20 seconds later, you go back, press 4 again. That's all you really have to do. You know, they really needed to do something different with Ash, and they did. They're going on a rampage of getting rid of the press 4 to win abilities. Ash was obviously the next logical one to be done, and now Blaze-Storm actually takes a whole different approach. What you see now is you have 2 modes. You have the marking mode and then the action mode. When you first press 4, you go into your marking mode, where you can place a mark, or I guess you could call it a death mark, on an enemy. Each mark will cause you to use some energy. So there is no actual initial cast energy cost. It is now strictly a per mark cost, and each enemy can be marked up to 3 times. Now what this does is the first mark means you will attack that enemy. The second mark will mean 1 clone will attack, and the third will mean both clones will attack. So you can hit an enemy 3 times. That means you and your clones will both attack it and do damage to it. It also allows you to select specific enemies to target, and you can now target them as a incremental attack focus, where this enemy won't take 3 hits to kill, so you can just do 1 mark on him, but this is a heavier armor enemy, is going to take a bit more, 3 marks on them. So it lets you be more selective instead of just hit and go as many times as you can until the counter ran down on previous Blaze-Storm. One of the other things you're going to see now in this, and I'll show you here, without mods, you're going to see 15 energy per mark used for Blaze-Storm. So that means every tick is 15 energy. Now here's where the tie-in, the synergy, comes in with Smokescreen. You end up with a big reduction if you use Smokescreen. You can see right here is 10 energy instead of 15, so that means a 3 mark enemy goes to 30 instead of 45. Now that doesn't affect damage or anything from the cloaking, it's just the energy cost gets affected. Now when you add in the mods that I currently have on my build, you see it drops from 6 and 4. So with cloaking, I'm not saving a lot, but when I drop 10 enemies with 3 marks apiece, that's an extra 60 energy I'm saving. On top of that, if you target an enemy and activate Blaze-Storm, that enemy is now susceptible to attacks from your teammates. If your teammates kill an enemy that you have marked before you finish Blaze-Storm, or before you use up a tick on them, you will be refunded the energy for that tick. So you may sit there and use a bunch of energy, and then partway through, Saren does a miasma and kills half of the enemies, and you get all your energy back. So that made it more balanced for other players having to play alongside an Ash, where they didn't have a room locked down by Ash where they couldn't do anything. That's basically the major rework right there, is on Smokescreen and Blaze-Storm being synergized together, and then of course Blaze-Storm no longer being a simple hit 4 and you win the game type ability. Okay, so let's talk about the build. Right now the build I'm using is this. You can see I'm focusing mostly around Energy Siphon just for most cases. Obviously this can be swapped out with Corrosive Protection if you feel the need to. Prime continuity helps with the duration for your cloaking, so when you do Smokescreen, it gives you more time to be able to mark targets with Blaze Storm, so you definitely want to focus some on duration. You also get more duration from narrow-minded. Power range doesn't matter as much anymore as it used to, because you're usually clustering with smaller groups, so I don't worry so much about the power range. Of course, you want fleeting expertise. Originally I built this with Streamline instead of Fatal Teleport, and as I was playing, I noticed I really didn't need that much efficiency, because I run typically with Zenuric active most of the time. So if you have a Zenuric or you have a Arcane Energize, anything like that, you're going to find that you don't really need that much in efficiency. So I ended up swapping in Fatal Teleport with the build, which actually helps a lot, because I used to have previously, before the rework, a separate Fatal Teleport build that I would use every now and then just for fun. And now with this new build that I've got here and incorporating Fatal Teleport in place of Streamline, it actually allowed me to put it to better use. And as I'll show you in a minute, it'll work really well depending on what weapon you use with it. Stretch, just to compensate for some of the lost range, because you do still want some range at which you can mark targets, and of course range for Smokescreen to take effect and teleport to be able to be used. Constitution, I did just to boost the recovery, or I mean not recovery, the duration. Knockdown recovery is helpful, but it's more for the duration on it. Prime Flow because of energy level, simply because at some points you can target a lot of enemies with this, with a lot of death marks. You're going to use a lot of power, so you definitely want to have at least Flow or Prime Flow on this. And then Transport to give me more strength. I did lose some duration, but with Prime, Continuity, and Narrow-Minded, I have plenty already. And then I threw on Power Drift just so I could get a little bit more power strength on it. Really, you could do Speed Drift, anything like that if you want. Those Speed Drifters are going to have that much of a help on it other than the sprint speed. You could do Rush, whatever. I just felt like having a little bit more power strength would be helpful in the long run. So now, let's talk about weapon choices. The main weapon I use for Ash is the Rakta Dark Dagger. And the reason for this is for covert lethality. This is the main one. Now you can use the regular Dark Dagger, you can use what was it, Karist, any of the ones that are daggers that allow use of covert lethality. That is the critical one you're going to use, especially if you're going to be using Fatal Teleport. It's 100 expert damage on melee attacks, but the lethal damage on finishers is the main thing there. Then of course the build I have here is to focus on viral radiation. You can build it for different things like that, but covert lethality is going to be the main target of your weapons that you're going to have. You want to have as much as you can in covert lethality, and the damage from being boosted from that. So I'm going to show you now, level 135 heavy gunner with a Fatal Teleport. One hit. That was one shot, dead right away. Thanks to covert lethality, a lower damage dagger can do a lot more against an enemy. Let's do Corrupted Bombard. Now, this is a dagger. It's not a high damage weapon. It's going to sit there and do only so much damage per hit, and I'll show you now. This is regular, just attack. You see how little damage I did. And you see how much damage I did just from Blaze Storm on 3 ticks. And again, the trick there is, of course, the bleed out effect. That's where you get your damage. Now, other ones you can use, I like the Reaper Prime somewhat, but heavy weapons such as Sendo Prime, War, Broken War, Jack-Katag, or my new favorite, the Galatine Prime. These are high damage weapons. These will do a lot of damage, especially to lower level enemies, especially troops. Even these, massive amounts of damage with Fatal Teleport. You're going to be able to do a lot with this. The main thing is going to be what enemy levels you expect to hit against. If you're going to be going into higher level enemies, 100 plus, I would go ahead and recommend just having a dagger with covert lethality and a good build, because you're going to do so much more damage as a result of the bleed out after a Blaze Storm finishes than you'll do with a heavy weapon like even Galatine Prime. That's just not built the same way. You're going to get a lot more effect from a dagger using covert lethality. That's just what I use. That's the results I've seen in my testing, both in the simulacrum and in play testing. I don't like using the daggers for normal melee attacks, but can't beat it for damage with with Blaze Storm or Fatal Teleport. And so that's pretty much it. Really, the only synergies you're going to see with Ash besides his own abilities together is going to be your weapon synergies. You don't really have many synergies that tie in with other Warframes. Unfortunately, you're still kind of the DPS, you know, not really a crowd control. You're not a tank, you just kill things. So you don't have a major tie-in with other Warframes as far as synergies with them. But feel free to leave, you know, if you like the video, hit like below, hit subscribe. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions, voice your opinion. As I said, this is all just my opinion. This is the build I use, and this is kind of the approach I have with the weapons for Ash. Feel free to express your opinions and stick around. I'll have some more videos coming up. I think my next video I'm going to try to get out for my Warframe builds will be off the new Warframe Nidus, which is absolutely one of my favorite Warframes to play so far. So, like I said, hit subscribe, keep tabs on my videos, and I'll see y'all next time.